Today, friends, in this video, I'm going to be showing you one of the easiest processes I know to create your very own in-house DIY junk journal so that you can either A, get started with the art, or B, have another journal to add to your collection so that you can do your wonderful journaling and creating in. So, without further ado, my friends, let's get started. Starting off, friends, you're going to need about two main components. One is going to be a paper type of some sort. I'm using a pattern paper that is actually typically marketed to kids. This is by a company called Createology. This is a pattern pad of paper. As you can see, it was on sale. I paid $3 for it off of the clearance being at Michael's. I figured it would come in handy. I've had it for a while. So this is actually the paper that I'm going to be using to do most of the decorating of the journal that we're creating today. Yep, very straightforward and economical. You could use many different things. You can use your digital prints. You can use other pattern paper packs that you have, your 12 by 12s, your 8 by 8s, whatever is going to be big enough to actually cover whatever your base is, depending on the size that you choose to make this. Now, I'm not going to be really talking about sizes in this particular video, and I'll explain that a little bit more in just a moment. So the second thing that you're going to need for this super easy and straightforward junk journal is going to be a base. Your base can really be made out of whatever you want. A file folder, heavyweight cardstock. You can take bookboard and actually create a base that way with a spine, two separate pieces, cover it with whatever you want. But one of the easiest way I've discovered to make a junk journal or a sketchbook is to simply use a pre-made book, Now this was a notepad that had line ruled paper in it for you to just kind of take notes on. It was given to a friend of mine at work, if I'm not mistaken, and they know I journal, so they gift this type of stuff to me on a regular basis. So basically what I did was take my time, pull the very front and the very back page away from the line ruled paper, and then slowly remove that entire block or that entire part that was the line ruled paper, right? And the reason I did that, I wanted to keep the pocket intact, and I didn't want to have to remove the elastic band. So there are ways to kind of work around whatever you may find going on with what you decide to use. A lot of things could be just straightforward. You could use, like I said, you can use many things for your base. So we're just going to kind of run through this. As I told you earlier, I'm going to keep this real time. I'm going to try to make it time efficient. And to do that, I've already pre-cut some of the things that I'm going to be using, but I will be showing you. So we're going to start this junk journal off by working on the base. Then we'll work on the signatures, and then we'll get everything attached, okay? So taking whatever you're using as a base, the very first thing I typically do is cover the front. Because this is a pre-made book, it's already really thick and sturdy. I don't have any of that to worry about. The only thing that I do feel is kind of flimsy is the actual spine, because I removed the papers that was in here. So I want to kind of reinforce that spine and give it some sturdiness for the things we're going to be attaching to it. So those are going to be the first two things we work on. We're going to work on reinforcing the spine, and we're going to work on the front. To reinforce the spine, let's start there actually. I'm going to be using a piece of book board. I simply took a book board and cut out a strip that would be just wide enough to fit inside the spine of my book. And there you have that. We're going to be gluing it down, of course, okay? So once the book board is in, and as you see, it's going to give the spine a lot of stability there. I want to cover the book board because I don't want just that exposed book board there. Now, to cover the book board, you can actually use a couple different things. You can use paper, okay? You can use fabric. I like to use fabric because, it'll stand up to the test of time, over wear and tear, opening and closing the book. Paper may eventually crack. You could use washi tape and just use some of your super adhesive glue to make sure that the washi tape sticks down and doesn't, lift up. So, kind of think outside the box, look around, see what you have. But if nothing else, you can always grab an old tile or old, I don't know, bed sheet or old t-shirt, and you can actually use the fabric from that to cut out just enough to cover where you're going to be gluing in that reinforcement on the spine. So we'll basically glue in the reinforcement, then we'll glue the fabric down on top of it in order to cover that book board, and you won't be able to see it. Don't worry, we're going to continue to build out from here, so it's not like the fabric that I put down is going to really stand out. Okay, so in order to put in my reinforcement, I'm going to be using Beacon Fabri-Tac. This is a super strong adhesive that I love to use. Typically, when I'm making a sketchbook or a junk journal, I will not use a water-based PVA glue, which is like your school glues, your Elmer's, most of the white runny glues. And you can always flip it over and look at the what it's made of on the back. Of course, I didn't mean to put that down like that. And I'm trying to be careful and not get any of this on my actual pages here. So I'm putting down quite a bit of adhesive, as you can see. Yes, I do tend to do what is known as over gluing because I sell a lot of my books and I want to always make sure that they are the strongest that they could possibly be. So with that glue down, I'm just going to line this up in the middle, make sure I have it centered. Now, if you decide to use a PVA glue, just remember that after you do each step, I would suggest that you put your project under something heavy to press it down and give that glue time to dry so that A, it will adhere really well, and B, it will flatten the project out, because water-based glues do have the tendency to warp paper. Now, you may not have any warping going on when you're actually gluing this part if you're using a water-based glue, but I still suggest you put it under something heavy just to make sure that it sticks and glues really well. So we're just gonna make sure we have that, and then I'll test it to see if it's in the middle, because that's definitely where we want it. Now at this point, even with using a a non-water-based glue, I'm still going to take time and probably give this a second to dry. But first I'm gonna go ahead and glue down the actual fabric, because I do want to make sure that I don't have to make too many trips with covering this. So let's go ahead and glue down our fabric. I'm going back in with my glue here. I'll start by placing it on the spine. Now, depending on the type of fabric you use, if fabric is what you choose to use, you may want to concentrate on making sure that you don't have large clumps of glue by taking your finger and just making sure to spread that glue out really well. That will help keep glue, especially water-based glue, from seeping through your fabric and giving you sort of a mess. Because if it should seep through and dry, it's pretty unappealing. It's pretty ugly, honestly, because it gives you like these really hard, wet spots, and when the glue dries, yeah, basically they kind of ruin the look of the project. So always be careful with your glue. See, like that. I pressed down too hard for too long. So there's a prime example. That's okay. We're making a junk journal, so it may turn out to look okay. I'm gonna go ahead and glue down the sides. I wanna go ahead and get this under something that I can go ahead and press it. Now, depending on whether you keep this sheet in your book, you may be working directly onto the actual book base or book board, which is perfectly fine. And I'm getting wet glue all on my fabric, so I'm not gonna be able to avoid the look I was just talking about. And possibly gonna have some seepage, and I'm just gonna have to deal with that. There we go. Not too bad. For right now, it's just right there. Now, you might want to take a bone folder and run it down through your crease. Make sure you get that fabric glued down off in there. I just used my fingernail. I'm being really gentle with this book. Maybe I will grab my bone folder and I'll run it just down there. Just make sure we get a good stick on that. Now let's do the other side really quickly. I wasn't sure how you guys would feel about like a real-time straight through video. And if you guys like this format, you just let me know and I will happily keep it and continue to do them all long form like this. I'm just gonna spread that glue out because I don't want anything to seep through my fabric if possible. I mean, you can't prevent it always, but you want to try to as much as possible. Try to prevent it. Now this fabric that I'm using to cover is actually a piece of, we call it muslin. It might be called calico in some places if I'm not mistaken. I originally dyed it red for another project that I was working on. And I had some of it left over and I was like, okay, I'm not gonna throw this away. And the red wouldn't really go with this project. So I decided to just dye the red piece black. And it came out this mixture of red and black. But it's toned down and is muted, so it's gonna definitely work for the direction I'm heading in with this journal. All right, so there. We have that nice and stuck down, hopefully. At this point, I am gonna press this under something heavy for just a few minutes before I remove the fabric on this side. We just wanna make sure we can fold here with no problem. Like I said, if you don't have these pages, this is not something you're gonna have to worry about. But I kept these pages in, so it is something I have to check on. Okay, I'm gonna put this under something heavy and then we'll be right back. Now that we have given that time to really dry, and I'll just show you what I have here. As you can see, the first pages are still just fine, and the inside has the reinforcement on the spine as well as the fabric that's covering it. Now, you guys can see that when I was pulling these pages away from the portion that I removed, you see how it got thin right here simply because, you know, I removed some of the paper that was a part of this sheet. So that fabric is also going to help reinforce that. And then I'm going to be covering things as well. So we're going to get all of that done really quickly. Let's go ahead and flip this over, and I'm just going to follow the outside of the board here in order to cut off that extra fabric, and we'll do that on both sides. Okay, there we go. Now, as I said earlier, I am using this pattern paper from this kids pattern paper pad, and I've already pre-cut a lot of things. So let me grab that. And I just basically pulled different sheets out of the paper, the pack. And then I cut them to fit the different areas of my base that I wanted to cover. So as you can see, the only thing we've used so far is just like an existing pre-made notebook cover, which you can get these at your local dollar stores, or you probably have many of them kicking around. We've used a piece of book board or cardboard or something that's thick. You can even use like the back off of a paper pad, your watercolor paper, your sketchbook paper. When they come in pads, they have the hard chipboard backs. You can use that. You could even cut up like cereal boxes or old food boxes in order to use to reinforce this spine. Then I put down some fabric, which of course I've told you can use other things like paper or washi tape or whatever have you. And now what I want to do is cover the edges here so that it'll look a little bit more presentable. And I have to remember which ones did I have for that. It's going to be these panels. So I cut these panels down to fit the inside, and then I rounded the corners because the corners of the book itself are rounded. I just kind of wanted to keep that aesthetic. So I'm going to be gluing these down onto this page, these pages just like this, and then we'll be moving on. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna take you guys suffering through the glue, putting glue on the back of this and putting it down on each step. So basically, I'm gonna put glue on the back of these, and then I'm going to be putting them down onto the page. Let's do one together, and then I'll do the other. I'm just gonna grab some of my glue here. I really try to put thought into the length of the crafting videos. especially if I'm going to keep them make sure I keep them all majority real time. I want you to be able to get the information you need and still not keep you too long. I don't know why, unlike with my art videos, when it comes to a crafting video, the time frame that it takes me to do the craft is always heavily on my mind. I don't understand why, but it happens, right? So I'm gonna put glue on, I'm gonna spread it out to the end. So let's pick that up. And then I'm gonna spread the glue out to the end to make sure my ends definitely stick down really well. You can do it all the way around if you would like to. Just put it out, make sure that it goes all the way out to the edge. So you'll have that great adhesion everywhere, not just in one place or one section, okay? Now, with this type of glue, it's really easy to kind of clean your hands. That glue literally kind of rolls off, dries as it starts to dry. And you can typically roll it off of your paper as it starts to dry as well. Now, I want to put this down where it's about 1/4 of an inch away, maybe 1/8 of an inch away, I'm sorry, from the front of that page. And I'll make sure it's even on the top and the bottom there. And then we're gonna get that stuck down. Now, if you want to, you can definitely ink yours. I chose not to ink mine, but you can definitely ink yours. I'll be doing all the inking and all that special stuff to the signature. And then I'll just show you what we have there. And here we have that inside page covered, and then you would just simply flip it, all right? So I'm gonna glue the other side down and we'll move on. With my inside pieces glued, well, these particular pages, we still gonna have to cover. I'm still thinking I want to cover all of these pieces as well, maybe. I'm thinking I do. But let's move on and put on our front piece for our cover. So we'll just close that up. And then I'll grab this piece, which I chose for the cover, and I'm going to be adhering it down on just the front part here. Now, here you may actually want to ink. I didn't ink anything else, but I do think I'm going to grab ink and ink around things before I glue them down as I move on. So I'm grabbing my black ink pad here, and this one is kind of worn, and I'm using the sponge from my brown. It doesn't matter, I'll replace it later. So it'll be kind of blackish brown. I just want to get rid of the cut paper look. And then the black border, I feel like, or the little accents of black, will lay down well against the white. And this is sort of a tedious process. I should have inked everything and given it all time to dry, but I didn't. And it's little details like this that helps make your book much more professional looking. So I definitely always suggest that you take the time to, try to get as many of those little details as nice as you possibly can. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna go through and ink these other two pieces right quick. So I inked everything that I had left pre-cut. And now I'm just gonna kind of go through and glue all of this into the places it should go. So let's start with the front cover. And then one piece is for the back, and one piece is for the front of the pocket on the very back cover of the book. And then from there, I'll make the decision whether or not I want to cut down pieces to go anywhere else before we actually start decorating the book. As I told you earlier, this is going to be one of the easiest ways to make a junk journal, because you're basically covering something pre-existing. You're not having to worry about really making your own book boards and wrappings and stuff like that. So this is really easy. And I'm going to do some other videos showing you other quick and easy ways that I know to put together junk journals. So this is just one of many that I will be sharing with you all. And I'll just pick that up and spread it out to the edges like I have done with everything else. Want to make sure, definitely want to make sure that the cover sticks. No issues there. All right, let's get the glue off my hand. And then we are going to do this the same way. Put it about 1/8 of an inch away from the front cover line. Make sure we got it about the same distance on top and bottom. And then just drop it into place. I feel like I'm good with that. And so then I'll just smooth that on down. And there we have the front of our book cover. I'm really liking the direction that I'm seeing this go. It does have a little bit more of a masculine tone to it because of the black and white paper, but I feel like anyone will be able to use it with no problems. Okay, there we have our cover done. That's the very inside. I haven't decided if I'm gonna cover this yet. And this is the inside where our signature will fit. The very back, and with the very back, we have the pocket exposed here. So I cut down this piece of paper to go on the pocket and get it covered. And I'm thinking that I may use this same pattern to cover here and to cover the two on the front as well, I'm believing. But let me go ahead and get this glued down. It's a lot of repetitiveness, a lot of just, you know, gluing and figuring out what you want to go where. But hopefully this is going to give you guys a good idea of where to start and how to start. And then you can take this idea and just kind of build on it and run and design and do your own thing, friend. Yours doesn't have to look anything like mine. You can decorate it with whatever type of papers and stickers and ephemera that you would like to. But I want to share the process of making this with you guys in hopes that it's going to give you some inspiration. All right, let's just go ahead and pick that up, and we are going to get that glue spread out to the edges, those corners there. If nowhere else, definitely on those corners. All right, I'll roll that excess glue off my hand because it like dries right away. I just always have to sweep the floor and pick up all the rolled glue once I'm done. All right, let's see. Now this one I cut, and it's only gonna have like a 1/16 of an inch border all the way around, like so. I wanna make sure, yep. And then I'll just glue that on down. And there we have our pocket. I'm actually gonna go back and put the pocket indicator on this. It wasn't on there originally, but we're definitely gonna make that stand out as a pocket. And if you want to, you can decorate something else there. That's the whole point of a junk journal. We're gonna get to the decorating all of the inside. But right now, I just wanna get everything laid where it should be as far as reinforcing everything. Okay, now I just want to do the very back cover, and I have this piece which matches the front, cut for the back, and I'm really just using it to cover this logo down here that says journal books. So it's gonna go basically directly in the middle, just shy of missing the elastic band, so it won't obstruct the band and the band won't cause the paper to pop off. All right, so let's get that down, and we are making such good progress. Let's get this down. And then the only other thing to do, we're gonna decorate the front of our journal. And as I'm decorating the front, I'm gonna make the decision about whether I wanna put that cover those pages at the very front, because I could very well leave them like they are and grab a stencil, and stencil those pages. I think that's gonna be so cool. I think that's what we should do. I think we should stencil. I'm gonna find a really nice stencil, and that's what we'll do. Hadn't thought about that, didn't pre-plan that part, but I think it's gonna work out really well. So let's get this on, and then I'll grab a stencil, and we'll actually go ahead and do the stenciling before we decorate the front cover. Can you believe? One pattern paper pack, $3. Kids aisle, clearance Michaels. And we are creating our entire junk journal. Love it, love it, love it. So much fun, hopefully for everyone. All right, rolling off that excess glue. And then we're going to just plop this baby down about right there. Just to give a little something, little pizzazz to the back of the journal. You could have, I guess you could have turned that into a pocket. You still can though, absolutely, if you wanted to. Add another piece on top of this piece and just glue it on 3 sides. Maybe I'll actually cut that. No, I don't want a pocket on the back of mine, but that's definitely a suggestion that you could run along with if you wanted to. All right, friends, let's take a look at what we have. Here is the front of our book. It opens up to what I've decided I'm gonna do stenciling, and then that will flip to the very inside. where we're gonna be attaching our signature and all of our pages and doing all the goody stuff there with the signature. Then you flip to the pocket, which is on the back, and then the very back of the journal. Let's go ahead and make that pocket look like a pocket. So I'm gonna take my round, I'm about to knock things over, sorry about that. I'm gonna take my round, what is this, circle puncher, and find the center of my pocket or somewhere close to it, and then snap. There we go, look at that. Now you definitely know that there is a pocket there for you to slide stuff into. Love that, very easy fix, and I just used a circle punch, that's all I used. All right, there we go, feeling it. Now friends, at this point, I am going to grab a stencil so that we can stencil. Can't get the pages to flip. These pages. So I grabbed a stencil here. This is just a one sheet stencil, and I'm actually going to use both parts of this. And I'm going to show you what I plan on doing. I'm going to be using the borders part on the edge of the page here. I'll flip it around, use the border part on the edge of this page, and then I'll put the main design, the main stencil design, directly in the middle. And I'm actually going to be using black ink to do this. I'll do part with you guys. This is going to take a while, so I'll do part with you, probably this page, and then the back page, which I'm only going to be using the border stencil on. I'll do that off camera. So let me just show you what I plan on doing here. I'm going to be taking and lining it up with the bottom of the stencil. It's not quite the same height, so I'll get it even on both sides as far as the page is concerned. And then slide it down to the, I don't know, maybe about 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the page, where the bottom of the stencil meets the edge of the page, and I can see through it because this stencil is clear. And I'm gonna try to keep it straight as possible. I think that should be good. I hope it is anyway. And then I'm just gonna grab my ink and ink it up. Excuse me. Now this ink pad looks like it's giving out a little bit. So the black ink might be pretty light, and that's fine. I just want you to get the impression here of what I mean. Let's get that ink in there as good as you can. Keep in mind, if you have an ink pad like mine that's kind of giving out, the more you go over the stenciled area, the darker that ink is gonna get. Excuse me. And that's the hope. Now, if your ink pad ever starts to get low like this, get a re-inker. I just have another ink pad and I happen to grab the wrong one, so I'm gonna make this work since that's the one that I grabbed and that's the one that I have here. And I'm going about this giving me a little bit more trouble than it would give you on a regular basis because of the strength of my ink and me trying to make sure that I have consistent ink and a consistent color. All right, let's just see what this does for us. We'll lift this and there, like that. I do. So we're gonna flip this over to the opposite edge here and line it up. And we're gonna be doing the exact same, trying to get it as close to the end of the page as I have it over on the opposite side. It's a little bit harder to see with the ink on it, but we're gonna guesstimate. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be perfect. Unless you're planning on selling it, then yeah, of course. I understand you trying to make it as perfect as possible. Or maybe you want it to be perfect just for yourself, because there's nothing wrong with that either. And as you can see, the inking process is a rather long one, especially when you have an ink pad that's not in the best of shape, which is why I'm probably gonna go ahead and skip ahead at this point, because I think you guys get the point. You simply put the stencil down where you want it to go, and then you stencil. It's that simple. Try to get somewhere where it's more ink. There we go. That way it won't take as long to get this done. But I'm gonna ink the rest of this, lay this big design down in the middle, get it inked, and then I'm gonna ink the back pages as well. And we'll be back now that you have a really good idea of what I'm doing as far as the inking process is concerned. So I have finished all of the inking, friends, and we're going to move on to doing the front cover. Let's just do a really quick flip through. So this is what the inking on the inside page looks like. I did change the image in the middle because the bigger one that was on the same sheet with the two border stencils was too big. So I put on the two border stencils, and then I grabbed another stencil and put in the middle image. And this stencil is going to play a part with our signature as well. So it'll all tie in together. Flipping on over to the back, I just put that same image directly in the middle of this page. So it would be something there. And then of course we have our pocket here on the very back. So now what I want to do is put on, of course, and that's the very back of it. Now let's put on our images for the front. I kept it really simple. I grabbed a book plate image, a book plate sticker, excuse me, and just backed it with black cardstock. And then I grabbed a black and white image of the moon and backed it with black cardstock, just so I can try to keep everything with some color harmony going on. So I'm just gonna be centering this up in the middle of my book. And this is the way it will look once everything is glued down. So, the only thing I need to do at this point is grab my Fabri-Tac and glue it down. Now, you can use whatever you want for your decoration on the front of your journal. This is where you get to go extremely crazy. I'm making up a bunch of these eventually to get around to doing some beginning junk journal crafting boxes for my Palm Street account. So that's kind of why I'm designing. This is going to be one of many that goes into a box with a bunch of ephemera and pens and things like that, so that people will have everything that they need to do to get started with the beginner junk journal. So I'm keeping my decorations pretty simple, but you get as elaborate as you want. So let's get this glued down. So that was pretty easy to just glue onto the front. And that gives us our book base, or gives me my book base completely done. At this point, you turn it into whatever type of journal or sketchbook that you would like based on the papers that you bind in it. I'm going to be turning this into a junk journal, as we've been saying the entire video. So I'm going to grab papers in order to make my signature, and it's just going to be one big signature since it's such a small spine. I'm just going to put one big signature with a lot of pages in it, and we're going to get that signature cut down to go inside our book. Let me grab those papers. So here are the papers that I'm going to be using for the signature. Now I have a variety of papers here, and I'm just going to go through them and show you what I have. Some regular copying paper, or printer paper, if that's what you would like to call it. Just regular standard size in white. I have some black cardstock that's also printer size, but it is a little heavier weight because it's cardstock. And I mean, you could, if you're designing a black and white journal the way I am, as far as all the base decoration is concerned, you could just do black and white pages and alternate them and then build your journal on that. But I'm going to go a little deeper because the inside pages have this sort of cream eggshell feel to it. So I also pulled some tea-dyed standard printer size paper, some watercolor dyed standard printer size paper. Here I have some splattered paper, which is white splattered with black and yellow watercolors. Or maybe it's gouache. No, it's liquid watercolor. That liquid watercolor that I made from those watercolor pencils. I just splattered white paper with it. Here I have a coffee dyed, a coffee stencil quarter sheet. Then here is actually coffee dyed ruled paper that came from the book, from the papers that I pulled out of the spine. So some of it is going back in, well, at least one page anyway. Here is just a white standard paper that was splattered with tea. And let's see here, we have a stationery and another stationery. Both of those are tea dyed, and that seems to have some black watercolor splattered on it. Some more tea dyed paper, Then we got some more coffee stencil paper here. And as you can see, that's the same design that I stenciled inside the pages. So it's gonna tie all of that in. I have a instructional page from something, but I'm just using it because it's got, you know, black and white. It's gonna go. And finally, I grabbed a insert from the inside of a Vogue magazine, but it's oriented the right way for my book portrait, and I figured it'll be a nice splash of color in the middle. So those are the papers that I'm going to be using to form the signature for my junk journal. And then we're probably going to do a follow-up video behind this where instead of me just doing like a cut scene and then doing a flip through of decorating the inside, I'm probably gonna make an entire video on decorating the inside. I think that'll be the best way to go. That way, both of these videos, part 1 and part 2, could go into a playlist for, you know, a really quick way to make super easy junk journals. And maybe even the other videos that I do along this line would, you know, go in there as well. That playlist, just make it easy access. So as you can see at this point, I'm just going through and folding my papers in half. This is probably the only one that's not going to be oriented in the right way, but I'm okay with that. It adds a little interest to things. So I'm not going to make you watch me fold each of these, but I'm going to fold all of these papers and then we're going to stack them together the way we want them to go, measure them in the jacket, and then cut them down to be the size that we need them to be to fit inside our jacket comfortably with no issues. So all of my papers are folded in half, and I pulled a piece of the same striped pattern paper that we used for the inside of the journal out of the pattern paper pack and folded in half to use it as a signature cover. That way, when the book is opened, the signature will start with this page and end with this page. So we'll have matching pages to do all types of fun, interesting things on. So I like that idea. So I'm gonna start with this as basically just fitting all of these papers into each other. Let's do a watercolor dyed paper right off the bat. And I'm just gonna try to center these the best I can and keep them all together and just fit them all together. It should be a lot of fun when everything is said and done. And you're just gonna kind of go through and arrange. I'll let you see me do a few, see how I fit a few pieces together here. I'm trying to alternate a little bit. Here, let's do this page. That'll be cute at this point. And then I'll do a short page. Let's do this one, because I definitely want to get these in. Okay. These big pages are probably, I'm not sure about this one. I'm gonna set it to the side for right now. And I'll put in, let's go with a black cardstock page. That'll help hold everything else down so far. Just trying to keep that all together. All right. And then I'll do my ruled paper. Get that in. I think I can take this off right now and just work with this. And for the most part, everything's gonna fit within this. Do I have a white sheet in there? Let's do a plain white sheet. Okay, let's go with another short page. Let's do one of the stationaries. Can I get that tucked in the middle and splattered and dyed? Let's do the black and white instructional page. Look at there, it's almost the perfect size. It's almost standard size. Okay, so now I think I can rotate back around to the black paper. This is the black watercolor dyed paper, not the black cardstock. And then let's go with the splatter, okay. And then we can do a dark tea. And then, here. Let's do another one of these because I like these in here. Put in our final short page. I definitely want to get all of those in. I think I'm going to tuck in another cardstock page here. It's getting pretty bulky there. Not sure how many pages we have so far. let's go with this one for sure. Should we both of those in? I definitely want to get another one of these in. I like all of the papers that I like handmade. So I definitely want to get all of those in. I really wasn't too concerned with getting all of the white paper in, considering it was so much black on white. Okay. And then I will just want to kind of test this a little bit, see how thick it is in my book. Okay, I don't think that's gonna be too bad. And I could actually put a few more in there, if the truth be told. I really could fit a few more papers in there. But I think there's gonna be enough pages, definitely. And we're gonna tuck this one in the middle, but not yet. Not at this very second. I just wanna make sure that all of these are stacked up to the right height there. Pushed together really well because I need to measure where we are going to be cutting this paper. So let me grab a bull pen and I'll just use this to clamp my papers on the bottom down here. It'll allow me to measure what I need. So you guys are seeing this in real time. And since this is supposed to be black, let me find a dark pencil if I can. Where's the black? Why can't I find a black pencil all of a sudden here? This is brown. It'll work. Okay, I want to measure from, so I'm gonna, this is how I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna pull the spine up level. I'm gonna push the paper back against the spine, but I'm gonna bring it down so I can see. Let's figure out where we want to cut our papers off at. We want them to be about as long as, I guess we can just use that first page there. If we cut it down to the first page, we're good. But let's see how tall. Honestly, I think the height is fine. Even if it sticks out just a little bit, I'm okay with that. I'm not gonna worry about cutting the height of it, but I'm definitely gonna cut it down even. So let's do this. Let's leave this bound together. And then I'm going to grab, I don't know if that's laying down flat enough for me to cut it. Let me move that out just a little bit. Okay, I think that'll be better that way. Okay. Yes, friends, I am figuring out how to cut all of this down. I'm gonna have to cut this page and my cover separate. So basically I'm going to I'll show you how I cut this and then I'll cut the other two separately. So I'm gonna take a metal ruler and line it up right against the very first page, right against the edge of it, because I wanna try to make sure it's clean of a cut as possible. Thank goodness the paper I put behind it was a really light color. All right, and then using an X-Acto knife, I'm going to remove that excess paper. You wanna make sure that your X-Acto knife is sharp. Pull with strong, consistent strokes. Be very careful and aware of where your other hand and fingers are for me at all times. If you have a cutting glove, you can wear it on the hand that's holding down the ruler just in case. I just basically want you to be safe, okay? Just take precaution. And slow and steady wins the race. I have had to learn the hard way that the key to an even, straight cut on this, when it's all said and done, is taking your time, moving slowly, and trying not to rush the process. And then eventually, you get through it all, and it's all even, like that. Okay. We have all our papers cut down to the same width. Now let me just check it in the book just to make sure. I don't want to cut the height at all. No, I don't think I do. I think that's fine. I mean, it would help if the corners of each of the pages was rounded, so I may actually do that. It's a lot of papers to round the corners on, but hey, you know. And I'll probably do that once I get the book bound. I feel like that'll make it easier. So what I want to do now is cut down these two, and then we'll bind it. Okay, friends, I have cut down the entire signature. I have the jacket on. I have the centerpiece in where I cut out from the magazine page. And this is all ready to go into be bound into the book. So let's get to binding really quickly. I'm gonna take the jacket and open it up to the point where I put my backing. And I've folded just a regular piece of paper in half so I can use it to kind of measure where I want things to go. Now, you could be really technical about this, but I'm going to tell you now, I'm not going to be really technical about this. What I'm going to do is measure to see if this fits within the boundaries of the page. And it does for the most part. So I'm going to take this paper and fold it in half, okay? And then come down about, I don't know, a ½ inch maybe, and fold it, all right? I'll open it up, and I'm going to grab, I'll just use a color pencil, that's fine. It's just a dark pencil. And wherever the cross marks are, I'm gonna put a little dot, okay? I'll get that centered in the book. I wanna make sure it's, thinking about right there is centered. I wanna get it as close to center as possible. And then I'm gonna use an awl and poke my holes in, and I'll check, okay? They seem to be there, and I'll just make sure that they came through the back. I need them big enough to get my needle through, of course. Now you could actually use, if you have like small eyelets, you could use small eyelets here to give it a little bit more security if you just needed to. But I'm gonna leave it just like that, it's fine. And now I'll take the signature and open it up to the center page. Make sure that everything is tucked in there really well. And then I'm going to tuck my sheet right in the middle. And I will punch holes through all of my papers. I have to put a little force on this to really get it to go through. Okay. And then I'll do it on the other holes here. Okay, got all the holes punched. I'm going to remove the backing paper or the measuring paper. And here I have an embroidery floss with embroidery needle already threaded. And I'm binding this using the 3-hole pamphlet stitch method. So I use my template to measure out my holes on my spine to try to make sure that they'll line up the best I can get them to with the holes that are in the signature. So to start the 3-hole pamphlet stitch, we're going to go in through the middle of the signature and then in through the middle hole in the jacket. And it looks like it's gonna be, I might can get it to. So we'll go in through the middle and then, or should I say out through the middle and then in through the top. And we're gonna try to get it through all our papers. Figure out where it's stopping. Sometimes, you know, have to take time to re-maneuver things, figure out where it should be. Okay, and now I want to check and see where they're, like, I don't like where that's positioned. I'm hoping it's gonna pull back into place. Then I'm gonna go out through the bottom and then in through the middle again. Trying not to sew through the stitch that I already have there. This may be just a tad bit difficult. See if I can work this out a little bit here. Try to. Okay, in through the middle. Got it there. Now I'm gonna put this thread on the opposite side of the one that's going down the middle so it kind of makes a bridge. I'll remove my needle and I wanna see where that's positioned at. I need that positioned about right there and I'm going to tighten it. Let's see. I'm just measuring as I go. Okay, I wanna tighten it there and then I'm gonna tie that off with a knot. And I'll go right over left and then left over right. I'm gonna check those pages real quick just to make sure that they're turning okay. Close my book and see. I'm okay with that positioning of the pages. It's sticking out just a little bit more at the bottom than the top. Not quite 100% even, but there I can kind of jukes it into place. So that's good. And I would normally, I think I'm gonna just tie a little knot here. I'll snip that. I said a knot, but I meant a little bow. We've already done a little knot, right? I'm gonna do a little bow now in the middle. That's fine. I like that. It looks junk journaling. Okay, let's take a look at our book so far. This is what it looks like when it's all closed up. We got the black thread on the binding, still exposing the natural outside book itself from the notepad, which I think is really cute. We used the black and white paper pad that was $3 in order to do most of the decorating and embellishment. The moon was just ephemera I had in some ephemera packs that I've had forever. Sticker book plate, and you open it up. Because of the signature jacket that we put on, this signature first page matches the inside cover. Now this is plenty of room to do all types of decorating, adding pockets and tucks and pictures or whatever. And we're gonna get around to decorating this journal in the next video. This was just a process video showing you how to actually create a very easy junk journal, especially if you're a beginner. Then we're gonna have our different pages in here. We have our short pages to work with. Just all those beautiful, scrumptious, gorgeous pages that we put in there are tucked away. Let's see, I saw something else kind of tucked away small in here. Look at that. It's contrast of the white against the black. Now, I typically do sewing, and I typically do a lot of sewing in my junk journals. But for this particular video, because I was keeping it, pretty simple and straightforward for beginners to show you how you can get started, then, I didn't do any sewing in this one. I just did a little inking here and there, but that was about it. And that, my friends, is how you can construct a very easy, basic junk journal. And even if you don't use the materials that I used, you could use whatever materials you have laying around. Just think about the process that I showed you in this video, and think of things that you would have laying around your house that you could possibly use, or laying around your studio that you could possibly use to, create your own junk journal. And for the next video that drops, we're actually going to be decorating this junk journal. We're going to spend the entire video kind of putting things in, and me showing you the process and the formula that I will take for putting in all of the different elements of a junk journal, especially one that I'm planning on packaging to sell either, online or at a craft fair. So this is a great video, or it's gonna hopefully be a great two-part video on not only how to create your own at home, but if you happen to do craft fairs or, sell your crafting on Etsy or other places, this is another wonderful idea that I welcome you to take and just utilize it in order to create really easy, straightforward junk journals, okay? I really like this. I love the fact that the pages lay flat. That's what I've been testing the entire time I've been talking. So yeah, next video, friends, we are gonna go through decorating this big baby. That's the back page, the back of the signature here, going onto the back page that then flips over to the pocket. So maybe we'll put a book board in the pocket. That'll be nice to fit in there. And a book board is something that you would take out and put behind your papers inside your journal in order to write on them. So we may even do a book board for the journal. So there you have it, friends. Hopefully you have liked this video, learned something from this video. If you've never junk journaled before, hopefully this is a great introduction to a way that you can put together a book and kind of follow along with this beginner series in order to get into it, see what it's all about, and see how much fun it can actually be, especially if you like playing with paper. If you are a experienced journaler, junk journaler, then maybe this is a great way to give you an idea to make you some fresh journals to do things with, or to just even share the craft with someone who you think might like it, a friend, a kid, a child, or someone that you want to introduce to the craft. This is a great way to begin, okay? So next video, we are going to be decorating. So I hope I see you back when that one drops. If you found anything that you like about this particular video, don't forget to drop that thumbs up for me, friends, to help push it out in front of other wonderful viewers like yourself. If you're new to the channel and you haven't subscribed, do consider hitting that subscription button and that notification bell so you know when we upload. We get to 500 subscribers and we'll have the ability to start going live as well, which I would love to do with you guys. Check the video description for any other relevant links or information, friends. With that, I'll say alchemy complete, and I hope you have a wonderful day.